I language, such as, I feel uncomfortable when you tell jokes like that. They may say, well, these jokes are harmless. Can't you take a joke, but you can still stand by your feelings? I still feel uncomfortable, and I wish you wouldn't tell those when I'm around. Then on a related note, I heard of a survey done quite a number of years ago, maybe it's back in the 90s, where that there were several hundred workers who were asked about what motivates them on the job. They were asked to rank the following factors as to what motivates them the most. Number one was good pay. Number two was job security. Number three, feeling appreciated. And number four, being involved in the decision-making process of the organization. Do you know how they ranked those? What do you suppose was the top motivating factor? Anybody want to hazard a guess? What was it?
The last one.
Would you believe the number one motivator? Well, they ranked them actually in the exact opposite order in which I gave them. The number one motivator, they said, was being involved in the decision-making processes of the organization, and feeling appreciated was number two. Sutton, in his book, makes this observation, quote, "There is little doubt that a management style that excludes workers from participating in decision-making is a job condition that may very well lead to stress." Okay, let's look at handling stress in our own personal lives. One of the chapters in Don Colbert's book on stress is Fight, Flee, or Stew in Your Own Juices. We've done that a few times, stew in our own juices. And Whiteman in his book suggests that when faced with a stressful situation, we basically have three options: accept, alter, or avoid. The AAA. Accept, alter, or avoid. So, how do we get from burnout to breakout, as one person expressed it? I'd like to discuss with you 16 practical tips for managing stress for your consideration. You have my handout there. One thing I think we need to do very early on in the process is to identify the stress factors. And I certainly don't want to minimize the stress factors that may be going on in anyone's life. And I know that stress can be very, very real, and we've all sensed it. But Judy Bailey says this, and this is a quote from her, says, "If we really get honest with ourselves, we may discover that we ourselves are our own number one stressor." So she says, if I can identify my own attitudes, choices, behaviors, and reactions as my greatest source of stress, I can fix me. But, she says, if I make you or other people or the circumstances of my life my stressor, then I allow myself to become a victim, and victims are stressed. That's how she put it. Now, that may be oversimplified a bit, but I do think there is some measure of truth to what she said. I believe I have lived long enough to know that I have very, very little control over the people in my life and over a lot of the circumstances in my life, but I do have a lot of control over my responses to circumstances and people. I'm personally convinced that there is a very strong spiritual component to effective management. Carve out a daily quiet devotional time. I've benefited enormously by the writings of Nancy Lee DeMoss, especially her book, A Place of Quiet Rest, and she includes some great thoughts and ideas here. And as a believer, this is very meaningful to me personally. And then meditating on Scripture and focusing on positive thoughts. There were two Christian psychiatrists several years ago, Minirth and Meyer, who co-authored a book entitled Meditating for Success, where they pretty well documented the psychological and spiritual value of meditating on Scripture. Norman Vincent Peale has made this statement, and I'm quoting him: "We are not what we think we are, but what we think we are." That's well said. Sing and make music. Music has always been a very important part of my life. I only have 300 or 400 favorite songs, hymns, choruses. I keep a long 4-page list of these in my vehicle, and when I'm driving along, sometimes I'll pull out that list and just start singing. That works for me. Cultivate a grateful spirit and a thankful heart. Compile a list of things for which you are thankful. I took time to do this a few months back, and believe me, it really didn't take me a whole long bit of time to fill up about 4 pages full of items for which I'm thankful. So develop an attitude of gratitude. According to Tim LaHaye, there are really two kinds of people: gripers and thankers, or, put another way, groaners and praisers. Develop a good attitude. Chuck Swindoll, who has written quite a number of excellent books, has said this about attitude, quote, "Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than circumstances, than failures, than successes." It says it will make or break a company, a church, a home. And he says, "I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me, but 90% how I react to that." Slow the pace of your thoughts, words, and your actions. I heard recently of a bumper sticker that said, "Just as I thought I was winning the rat race, along came faster rats." Boy, haven't we all encountered those critters. So slow down. Have realistic expectations. Know your limits. Herb White, who wrote some great editorials in Library Journal, wrote one a number of years ago, quoting him, talking about burnout. It says, "Burnout comes from frustration, from insoluble dilemmas, from the recognition that the backlogs cannot be eradicated no matter how hard we try, that we can never succeed and never get credit." So we need to be realistic about how much we can do, set limits for ourselves, and just simply learn to say no to more work and commitments if at all possible. Be flexible. Our provost here at PBA often will remind us of this statement. He says, "Blessed are the flexible, for they shall never be bent out of shape." And then I heard years ago someone say, "Ride loosely in the saddle of life." On a related note, I think flexibility also applies in the area of employee work hours. Institutions that offer flex time often create a win-win situation for their employees. Seek out colleagues, family, and friends with whom to share. I really think women are a lot better at doing this than are most men. Ladies frequently call their friends with no set agenda and chat and visit, get together, listen to each other. But it just seems like in our modern society, those of us who are men, we're supposed to be real strong and macho and seldom ever admit that we also need time on occasions just to talk, get together, and listen, and encourage each other. So I think the bottom line is we all need a network of friends and support. Not surprisingly at all, the number one